workbench like I normally do. I pretty much taught myself to play mandolin. Well, the thing that really drew me to the mandolin was not only the music, but just the shape of it. To me, with maybe the exception of a violin, I don't know that there's a more beautiful instrument made with the Florentine scrolls and the archings and the opportunity to use some just absolutely beautiful curly maple. My name's Lynn Dudenbostel, and I've been building stringed instruments for about 28 years now. My first interest in music was probably as a result of my father, who had musical inclinations. Probably when I was about 13, I picked up guitar. That was a result of my dad coming home with a guitar one day. We'd never had one in the house. I started taking lessons and kind of fell in love with it, and it wasn't long after that I developed an interest in mandolin. The mandolin's an instrument that really kind of has its roots in Italy, and most people have seen what they call a bowlback, or around the South they would refer to it as a taterbug mandolin, and they were built for classical music. This was really originally a classical instrument, and it wasn't until the 1930s when Bill Monroe came along that it became a bluegrass instrument. In the late 70s, live bluegrass music in Knoxville was a big thing. You know, this was after Deliverance, and banjo and bluegrass music popularity was going up. All of a sudden, we had more progressive players around. We had a group called Newgrass Revival. And Sam Bush, who's still very active, was a pioneer of newgrass music. They call him the father of newgrass. So, you know, here are these guys playing this music I really like, and they're playing mandolins. And I got to see some of the greats back then. I got to see Earl Scruggs, Lester Flatt, Bill Monroe, Don Reno, and those guys would come through and play these small venues around Knoxville. And it was about that time that I went with some friends up to Rockwood and met Gene Horner and saw what it was like to build these things. That kind of planted the seed for me to build instruments. To see somebody take a pile of wood and convert it into something that you could make music on was really fascinating. While I didn't have any background in woodworking, never had a shop class in high school, it just kind of stuck with me. And then when the opportunity presented itself, after my wife and I got married, she wanted a dulcimer. And so I took that as an opportunity to put the car out of the garage into the driveway and build a small shop. I built 3 or 4 dulcimers and then moved on to a guitar with the intention of building mandolins, because Gene builds mandolins as well, and that's what I had a big interest in at the time. One thing led to another, and here I am doing it full time. Well, when I start building a mandolin, the first thing is wood selection. I'll go through and select a spruce top and then select the maple for the rest of the instrument. Then I'll rough carve the top and back, and there's a lot of final work that goes in by hand with finger planes, much like a violin maker, to get the thicknesses right. The thicknesses of the top and back are very critical, and they change throughout. They're thicker in the middle and thinner out towards the edges. Much like a violin, mandolins are traditionally built with particular woods. And this type of mandolin traditionally has a spruce top. And it wasn't until just a few years ago that I really found out why spruce was the preferred wood for most stringed instruments. And that's because sound travels through spruce faster than any other wood. And so it has very good acoustic properties. Once you get the body assembled, then you fit a neck to it. There's a dovetail joint that holds the neck into the body. It's glued in, so I'll rough that in. And then the binding, this decorative trim that goes around the edges. You have to route some of the wood away and glue that binding on, and then scrape it to get it everything level. There's a lot of sanding that goes on in every step. Then the neck gets carved, inlaid, and the veneer put on the back of the pig head. And once you get the entire instrument together, then you can kind of clean up all the little details that need to be, you know, just perfect. And then you start the finishing process. And that probably takes more than a third of the time of building the instrument. And you start by putting stains on it to achieve this sunburst finish. You have to put all the hardware on. The tailpiece, which holds the strings down here, you have to fit a bridge. You have to put the frets in the fingerboard and put the tuners on, and then you can put strings on it for the first time.
Okay.
I can't think of any particular part of the process that I like any better than the others. It's really satisfying when you first string up a new one and get to hear it for the first time. There's been a few in fairly famous hands. One in particular is a mandolin. A couple of mandolins I built have ended up with Chris Thiele. And Chris is a mandolin player. He's in his mid-20s now, who's pretty much considered to be maybe the finest mandolin player in the world today. I've done quite a bit of work over the years for him. It's flattering. But it feels really good to see anybody play it and enjoy it. I hope it's an instrument that makes somebody want to pick it up and play it, and that's the goal. And whether they're famous or not doesn't really matter. I've studied the old instruments very closely. I often tell people that you can't improve on what you consider the standard, and for mandolins I consider the standard those instruments built by Gibson in the mid-20s. For guitars it's Martins from the mid-30s. And I've been very fortunate to be able to study a lot of those instruments. Friends have loaned me those vintage instruments, and I've taken measurements, made drawings from them. And basically what I've discovered is what worked in the 20s and 30s still works today. And if you deviate from that, you come up with something different. And that may be better to some people. But the sound that's stuck in my head is that sound from the 20s and the 30s, and my goal is to just try to achieve that.